To do this, I hit the button. So I think since I hit the button, I think that means that we are now doing a brand new edition of the Bid Nerds. Welcome everybody. It's a Monday morning here in fabulous downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is John Polnik. I'm your host of the Bid Nerds, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. This is your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars on Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer, and sometimes some other auction sites as well. What we do on this channel, I'm just going to tell everybody, Mike, what we do is we talk about cars. That's what we do. The cars that are for sale, they're coming up on the auction block. Most of them are awesome. Some of them are not at all. And sometimes we talk about both, and we make predictions as to what they will sell for and what they won't sometimes, or what, which platform is better for which car or the other. And we keep track. And the first thing we usually do on every episode, and we'll do it on this one too, is talk about last week's or yesterday's cars. Jesus. What's up, Michael Deeb? Well, I don't know what you're upset about. You beat me last week. Usually I'm better at this, but as it, the data would not support my claim from last week. That is for sure. What's up? What happened?
What's happening, my man? Actually,
welcome back to a Monday.
Don't call it a comeback. Mm-hmm. The tide has turned, my friend. But I had you early in the week and then the middle of the week too, pretty good.
I struggled to keep up. I tried with Yahtzees, which is when you guess it right on. But nothing was helping.
Yeah, you had one. And we had one draw. So yeah, Monday was good. I got 4 right on Monday, and then the one that you got right was that Toyota MR2 on Monday. Do you remember that car? That in Florida, that MR2 Turbo?
Oh, yeah. That was definitely my car. I wanted to own that thing. That's still weird. Well, let's talk about Friday's cars specifically. Let's because now Friday, if any of our friends and fans were watching, and we do appreciate you watching, make sure you hit subscribe, notifications, likes, all that kind of fun stuff. If anyone was watching Friday, we need to apologize because we lost our stream.
Oh, God, that's right.
Almost about 2/3 of the way through the show, internet said, "Nope, sorry, enough Bid Nerds for the week," and cut us off. We were deplatformed. This is your escape for politics, by the way. I've been wanting to say that for weeks. If you're on the internet and you're doing whatever, you need to come to Bid Nerds and watch the Bid Nerd show before you surf any of the cars on Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer, because you do that every day. So come here first, find out what the interesting cars are, then go surf the auction sites, and then you can even see, we put the links down in the information below. So follow along. Tell us if our bids and our predictions are lousy or not.
JP, how bad do politics have to be when you're encouraged to come to Bid Nerds to clear your head?
Right. We will never mention any politics. We don't mention any bugs that you might get. Nothing. We prohibit politics on Bid Nerds. So there it is, guys. All right. So Friday's cars. What did we look at on Friday? We had kind of an eclectic crew of cars.
We did.
Friday.
We started on Cars and Bids with a 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X. That's that all-wheel drive special edition. That car did have some miles on it, but man, JP, we were all over it because I said 11, you said 10, and that car sold for 10,500. So we started off the day with a draw, which was kind of cool. Then we jumped over to Bring a Trailer, and we looked at a really neat selection of cars, starting with the 1988 Nissan Desert Runner, that hard body Nissan pick 'em up truck that was a special edition with the red, white, and blue graphics, and they have like a light bar on top. I mean, I remember those cars from high school and thought they were really cool. And again, growing up in San Francisco as a city kid, you just didn't see a lot of off-road stuff. So something that was with that kind of eyeball, I always thought they were really neat. So in any case, I believed in the car. I thought it was low enough miles and clean enough that it would bring 15,000. You bet the under at 14.5, and that car sold for $12,250. JP, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not well bought, considering how clean it was? Do you remember the car?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's a well bought car. But the Nissans have just not commanded the big money like the Toyotas do. I mean, Toyota was in Back to the Future. Datsuns were not. And I love the livery, the factory livery. I mean, this just screams the color. Those are the wrong wheels, though. I
really?
love, those are a Pathfinder or something. But this thing is just fantastic. It does have some corrosion here and there, and it was not a perfect example. But this is the kind of cool ass pickup truck with all the fun whiz bang redwood stuff that you could actually go out and use, not worry about. And they are indestructible as an SR5 Toyota, and all that stuff. So but Nissans just have struggled to hold on to that, and I think that's partly because, I don't know, if I had to guess, it's just because Nissan currently sucks. But you would think that 240Zs are super popular, and 300Zs and stuff like that are coming up, and 300ZXs. So I don't know. I think this car is. I think it's coming. You just don't see enough of them around, and I think some of the cage stuff on this stuff is modern, like the rocker bar stuff.
The French company Renault, as an auto group, they own Nissan at the moment. They were run famously by Carlos Ghosn, who was a mover and shaker when he was having his heyday about 15, 20 years ago. But the last thing I heard, he was on the run from international, dealings and stuff like that, and they tried to sneak him out of the country to Lebanon, and I don't know, he's in a prison somewhere in Europe, and big trouble for some of the, I suppose, underhanded things he's done. As such, whoever's in charge at Renault and thus Nissan, they still need to get their act together, because they haven't figured it out yet.
It just feels like at some point, like 10, 12 years ago, Kias were just the biggest piles of junk, and they looked terrible. But Nissans were coming up, and it feels like somewhere in there, they just like, the people at Kia went and kidnapped the lead designer, and brought him over, and now Kias look great, and and Nissans look like Kias. They're just garbage.
The reliability factor, unless the viewers tell us otherwise, from what I understand, the cars coming out of Korea right now are your decent economical choice. Economical choice and reliable for days. They come with like 100,000-mile warranties and all that sort of thing. So
our friend Matt Weitzel, he from 914 Rubber and Work on Your Karma. I mean, he bought a GT2 Stinger, one of those Kia GT2 Stinger things, and he picked me up from the airport in a few months ago when I went and visited him. And oh my God, that car was great. I mean, it was great. So, anyways, whatever.
Yeah, Matt's smarter than you and I. That's why.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about that.
All right, so we also picked up, we looked at a 1988 Porsche 911 Carrera in kind of that champagne gold color. JP, I just thought this was a neat pick because it was such an honest-to-goodness 3.2 G50 Carrera with reasonable miles in a very period-correct color that wasn't guards red or black. As such, I believed in this car to the moon and back. I thought this car would bring in the 80,000s, like well into the 80,000s. I said 88. You took a very conservative under on this car and said 65, and the car sold for 74. So it really did split our bids, but you were closer. We got cut off. Tell me what it was about this car that you were so, I don't know, kind of bearish on it.
Well, I don't know if I was bearish. I just feel like, I mean, it is fantastic, but you're looking at your number was what, 80 something?
80 something, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like 964 territory coupe. And I think anyone that's in that number goes, you know what, I can get a 964. And everybody wants, that's about the only thing anybody wants more than a G-body coupe is a 964.
Right.
G50. Yeah. So, but in the color wasn't the greatest color. The interior wasn't the greatest interior, but both you and I would love to own this car and rock it, and we wouldn't care that it was old man beige. It looks to me like it has some rose to it, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is a blue chip car, or nearly a blue chip car. The color is what hurts. If it were a bright, flashy, crazy color, or if it were a conservative silver, black, white color, it would do better. This is possibly the worst color this car could be in for as nice a car as it is.
And that has to be it, because if it was like some sort of aquamarine or whatever, an unusual color, that's usually a premium that somebody would pay. But in this instance, Bidders are saying, it's an off color, but it was so off, the Porsche community doesn't like it enough to pay a premium for it.
It was off in a boring way, not a flashy look at me way.
Yeah, so I mean, weird. Anyway, it did bring real money though. 74,000 is a good reflection.
Huge.
your price was definitely a little bit low, and my price was definitely way too high. So there you go. That was an interesting car.
Yes, it was. I think also, a lot of times I bet based on where it is at the time that we make the bet. Well, I mean, I don't know what it was at the time when we were looking at it. There was a long way to go to get to 60 something thousand. So I was like, oh man, we're 30,000. It was like 30,000 more. It'd probably bring it. We've seen some late rallies, but last week we did not. Last week there were multiple cars that we seriously thought in the last moments would just have that, bottle rocket thing, and it just didn't happen. A lot of them failed to launch. So I was pretty bearish by the end of the week last week. And
Also on Bring a Trailer, we saw a BMW M Roadster. This is a 2001 version with the S54 motor. That's the hot 315 horsepower version of the cars. The ad describes how rare, I think, one of 27 or something unusual in this Laguna Blue Pearl kind of effect. I was really excited to talk about this car with you on air because I wanted to tell you much hate the interior on these. The two-tone, the black and gray.
Pretty hideous.
Just the way they designed the dash, I don't like, but everything else about the cars I love. And someday would love to own either a coupe or a roadster of this ilk. I believe the car. I said 35,000. I think you also believed in it because you said 29.9, which is a lot of money for an M Roadster. But this one had unusually low miles. It's clean enough. Had some cool wheels on it. Car sold for $39,750. So it's a draw, 2 wins to JP, 1 win to me, and then we landed on our star car of the day, the 1992 Porsche Cup USA car. We did get to talk about this car because we led with it. I said 185,000. You took the under at 170 because it's got like 60,000 racing miles on it, and it's got no carpet. So I think your bid was really good. VAT community ate this thing up. Car sold for $222,000, which is insane because for $225,000 you can buy an imported 964 RS, which is way better to live with. I'm shocked that the community paid a premium for a car that is stripped out and has a welded in roll cage. So this price really doesn't make sense to me. I would say that this car was extremely well sold and foolishly bought, but that's my opinion. Stickers, there you go. And I'm a nerd. So I got 14 wins for the week. JP had 10. We did have a single draw. And then JP had the one and only Yahtzee, which was, I think this was on Tuesday.
For that
was
356. Yeah.
356. But one of our friends asked us to look at that car. Remember?
Yeah, Matt, the LeBron.
Yeah, Matt. That was Matt's suggestion. So thank you, Matt, to that one. JP nailed that car at 85,000 on Tuesday for his Yahtzee. Well done to you, man. If we're keeping score by Yahtzees, you have like 5 and I have 1.
That was such a beautiful car, and I'm frankly surprised that I got that one right on the money. 356s has been one of those cars that until recently, it really has been in the last 5 years that I've really started to learn anything about them. I mean, 5 years ago, I knew nothing. I knew I liked them, and I thought they were neat, but especially coupes, I was like, So, I mean, thanks to all our friends from Rod Emery and all the other guys that have showed me the way, showed me the light, but that one also wasn't crazy expensive. You think some of the pre-A's, some of these cars are, multi-hundreds, thousands of dollars. That one was $85,000. And I
think if that car wasn't as clean as it was, even though it was just like really nice driver quality, if that car were an SC, it would have brought a lot more money.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we talked about, that's enough about last week. People want to know what's going on in Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer. They want to nerd out about the cars that are coming up today and this week. And so let's talk about, we've got some really cool cars coming up on the auction block in just moments. Like some of these cars are going to be closing here in less than an hour. The first one that we want to start with is this Noble, a 2005 Noble. Wow, look at that bad boy. That is something else.
Is that the car we're going to start with? Amazing.
That is indeed.
Our star car, then there's a 2005 Noble M400. Now, I don't know a lot about this car company, but I enjoy track days, so I am slightly familiar with these things. I believe the M400.
You're familiar with them passing you.
Yeah, exactly, on the outside. these are one of the, I think, earlier versions of the cars. These cars, this car is offered out of Granbury, Texas, with just 3,000 miles. So this car does not have a long history to it. Noble is basically a builder of the frame, and then he buys all these cool components and makes what is essentially a street legal track car. These use a 3-liter twin turbo Ford Duratec motor. So that's a little V6 with a Getrag 6-speed manual transmission, and I always say this wrong, but like a Coiffé limited slip differential. And then they've got legitimate aerodynamics. I mean, these things probably make a couple 100 pounds of downforce. All this runs through modular wheels and a limited slip differential. If I remember correctly, these cars probably weigh less than 2,500 pounds, and it's making 400 horsepower, hence the name, the M400. So you get a sense of the power to weight ratio and the extreme handling that these cars are capable of. This car is sitting at $46,000 on just 9 bids. So not a ton of action, but there could be a late rush. I don't know. But it's out of Granbury, Texas. So not a bad place to pick one up. Definitely not an abused and put away wet car. You can look at it. Even the Alcantara on the seat looks like it's in brand new condition because, again, the car only has 3,000 miles. At 46,000 JP, I don't know if this is a $60,000 car or more. It doesn't look like it's going to get a lot of action. Do you know more about these than I do?
I don't think I do, but I do know I've had some experience driving around with one, not in one, but you know, when we were out running, going up to Mount Charleston in Rami's GT2 versus this car, that is a sight to behold. A GT2 RS, you know, modern brand new one versus one of these cars, and of course this car is a couple of 100 horsepower light to the GT2, but boy,
probably weighs 800 pounds or more less.
Yeah,
you know, it can be like 800 to 1,000 pounds less, and that's a big difference.
And this is the analog versus the digital world, right? And those two cars going at it are just fun to watch. A little terrifying to be in one of these. Do you know where these are made?
I don't. I really
don't. I think they're American, though. That's what I thought, you know, and it's like I love the idea of some kind of amazing American kind of supercar killer that you can get for not a lot of money, that has all the cool whiz-bang looks, and everybody, it's kind of a showstopper at most cars and coffee type things, and just everybody, this car gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, I'm wrong. So the designer Lee Noble is from Britain, where the body and chassis are manufactured in South Africa by High Tech Automotive. And
I blame Lee.
Imported, and then if you get one here, they're imported. So that's the Noble story. There you go.
That is the Noble story, and he's sticking to it. Look at that. Our crack research team was on it. All right, so how many bids does this have, and how much longer
9.
we go? 9.
Just 9.
That is low.
9 bids. And it's less than an hour to go. So JP, I really don't know. Listen, the new ones are even faster and better looking. I never got behind the looks of the car. They're a little too contrived. But I mean, just like another $8,000 puts you at 54,000, and that's where I'll park my bid. So boom.
54. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to bet the over on these. I know that they typically go for more than that. I just don't know if there's a big, huge audience. What'd you say, 54?
Yep. But I mean, again, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I'm going to go 60 and give us a little bit of a spread there.
Okay.
And it'll be I mean, I was under the impression that these are 70-something cars. And, you know, finding one that with this low miles is pretty amazing. But, you know, that is low action, and it's Monday, and people are kind of groggy. Are people coming into, you know, that's people ask me all the time, what's the best day to have your car on Cars and Bids or bring a trailer? And the answer is unequivocally Friday. Friday is when people get loose. Friday is when people are excited for the weekend. Monday morning is not it. You know, right now, the people that want this car are Zoom meeting to their, you know, bosses in New York or something like that. So
every other Friday's payday, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to watch this one, see where it goes. You know, at 54 at your bid, if it goes under that, I mean, that would be an amazing buy. I mean, what do you get as this much?
Yeah, it's brand new. It's got 3,000 miles. It's barely broken in.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, okay. So this car compared to that SE from or not SE, that G body G50 beige 911 that we talked about on Friday. That car.
Listen, this Noble is a terrible car on the street. It is so stiff.
Yeah,
it's so difficult to climb into. It's a complete racing shell with a full 6-point harness. I mean, that's just
I
get it. Yeah, if you're in your 20s or early 30s and you think it's cool to drive a race car on the street, then yeah, by all means, have your dad buy you a Noble, spoiled entitled pilot, whatever. But as a track car, something you literally tow to the track or keep at the track or near the track, and you pull this out to do your lapping in, that's an amazing toy. They far exceed almost the best street cars. I mean, this car would probably humiliate a GT2 on the track. So anyway.
Good times. All right, what do we got? Let's move on.
Yeah, let's jump over to cars and bids for a second. Out of Carmichael, California, JP, was this really cool E30 era 1987 BMW 325 IS Coupe. Obviously, you and I both love these cars. These are manual rear-wheel drive, and this is what we used to make cars that enthusiasts really want to get behind, because these cars were kind of giant killers on the back road. This particular one looks to be relatively clean, although we must mention it does have $258,000. But I defy you. Miles, yeah, what did I say? Dollars. Yeah, sorry.
$258,000 in the trunk. It's full of crack.
Yeah, it's exactly right. 258,000 miles, and I would say by looking at the pictures, there's no way you could tell until you saw the odometer. It's pretty clean for that kind of use. Cinnabar red, black interior, private party sale. Not a lot to complain about. There's one of the brake lining warning lights is coming on, and the rest is just some sun fading and some light scratches and chips. Otherwise, this car is basically stock, and you just don't see them like that very often. 325 IS. What do you say?
Yeah, man, E30 is kind of blue chip. I mean, that is where you start when you're an enthusiast. I mean, these were cheap for a long time, but they were never like dirt stupid cheap unless they were pieces of junk. And yeah, I mean, they are obviously bulletproof. That powertrain just goes and goes and goes. This picture shows that it has a dash toupee, but the later pictures do show that the dash is fine. So that's just to protect it, huh?
There's one crack, I think, behind the steering wheel.
I thought I was looking at it and it looked like it was okay, but that's impossible to fix, man. I hate that.
Yeah, so keep scrolling and see if you can see.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay,
there it is. There's
one crack, mobile. Yeah.
One crack behind the steering wheel, which is a super bummer. But otherwise, and it's funny, JP. In my notes, that's the only thing I wrote down was the crack in the dash. It's like the only thing that would hold me back from this car, because like you just said, it would be really difficult to get that fixed.
And it's right in your face, and it's something you look at all the time, and it just makes you feel like, my car's not that great. I feel like, so the 87, this is an IS, right? So, I feel like the E30s, when they came out in, was it 84, 83, 84, 83? I think 84.
Yeah, right in there. Yeah.
Introduced in 83, but as an 84 model. It was like BMW knew they had that was their entry level car. They had the 320, which was pretty lackluster. But the E30 came out, and it was like a pretty nice car, and people immediately latched onto it as, okay, this is a sporty German, sedan. And I don't think BMW really realized it. They're like, oh, wait, and so by 1987, they knew that they had a winner and that they knocked it out of the park. And so this is like the first one that had any kind of sports stuff on it. Has the front spoiler and the little wing on the back and a couple of the little doodads that made it like, okay, kind of flashy, especially for the 80s.
Yeah, look at that front air dam. I mean, that's impressive looking. And you're right, JP. I actually always thought that the 320 was a pretty car, but it had a very underwhelming, very 70s and oil embargo driven drivetrain that just didn't have a lot of performance to it. So BMW then does a refresh with the E30 platform. The four headlight design plays and transfers over really well. The sheet metal is attractive, but they managed to shoehorn a sporty little 6-cylinder in there, and all of a sudden this was the yuppie mobile of all your coastal cities. You had to have one, and a BMW and a gram of white powder, and you were the coolest kid on the block. I mean, that was was the era.
About the only thing that's awful about those big, huge diving board bumpers that they finally eliminated by 89 on some of the models. Boy, it just, it's just, I mean, there's a reason why the E30 is a blue chip when it comes to enthusiasm of cars, and why they built the M3 off of this chassis. So there it is. You got a bid for this thing?
Yeah, so this car, again, with 258,000 miles, JP, I thought would be an interesting because it might be a value buy for somebody. Yeah. There's action. We have 17 bids. The car is sitting at 8,200. I think this car's got some legs. I'm going to say 12,900, and it sells there.
I mean, for an E30 with 250,000 miles on it, above 10 is just absolutely patently ridiculous, especially when you mentioned earlier there was that turbo MR2 that only got, I think that brought 10 or something like that, or didn't even break 10. It was 9,000. The turbo MR2 is so much better car than this. But E30s are E30s. So yeah, you're where at? You're at 12,000.
Yep.
I'm. The way the world is, it could go to the moon, but I gotta bet the under on this. I mean, 258,000 miles has gotta stop somebody. I'm gonna say it fizzles out at 11.
11. All right. Yeah. So the savvy listeners will realize I just changed my bid because I said 12.9, and then when you asked me 12, when you started going over 10, I'm embarrassed. So I'll take 12, and you get now 11. Fight for
right, there it is.
Chicken out. All right, cool. All right, 2005 BMW M3. Let's see how the company evolved. Yeah. I love this car when it came out, and I have to say, I don't know that I've ever even driven one of these. What's the platform called?
E46.
E46. I don't think I've even driven one. And yet, I think it's really cool. The CSL version of these that they never brought to the United States was so cool. This particular car, our car here, JP, on Bring a Trailer, is a 2005 M3 Coupe. This has the competition package and a 6-speed manual, which is the enthusiast version of the car. The competition package had a little bit different springs and shocks. Believe it or not, it had a larger front stabilizer bar, and if my memory serves me, because I'm a complete geek on this shit, it had actually smaller rear stabilizer bars. All this was complemented by some forged BBS wheels, and I don't think there's a bump in horsepower. I think the horsepower is the same. But if you didn't get the sunroof, I think you also got a carbon fiber roof, which was a first for a production car in North America.
No, that was E92.
Oh, really? Okay. So, anyway, so there you go. But this was a real thing. Now, the dual, they had a single clutch version of these cars called the SMG, and that gearbox was garbage. So the 6-speed manual was the one that you wanted. So I think the hot setup on these, I remember, is if you just actually asked them not to put a sunroof in it. So the slick roof versions of these cars that people would have ordered smartly becomes sort of like your lightweight version. So you got the forged wheels, you've got a lower center of gravity and that sort of thing. So that's kind of a big deal when that's the way the cars are built. Now, this particular car, which is offered to us out of, I think, Larkspur, California, which is in Marin County across Golden Gate Bridge, has been involved in 2 accidents. Now, we do a pretty good job of championing the seller of these cars when there's a mark on the Carfax. But when a car has been in 2 different accidents in its lifetime, JP, at some point we have to acknowledge, this might not be the best example to buy. And the price is probably going to be a reflection of the fact that this car has been beat up a little bit. So as such, JP, our particular car is sitting on 12 bids at just $20,000. I would also assert that Eric Keller and Enthusiast Auto Group out of Cincinnati, Ohio, have been driving the prices on these things. And the market for this generation of M3s is actually on the climb. And this car should have been one of those, save for the fact that it's been in these 2 accidents. It does also have 98,000 miles. It looks very good in the pictures, but buyer beware. So there you go. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a competition version, so I think that's why it has the slick top. So, yeah, look, the E46 is one of the best cars of all time. I mean, there it is. I'll say it. This is, 2005. This is late in the model run for E46. At that point, they had already pretty much, if you're on the showroom floor, you're looking at one of these. Right next to it is the E90 four-door. So the new generation was coming. It took another couple of years until they did a 2-door E90. So, but this, look, there's not a 996 of its contemporaries is about the same horsepower, and these 2 cars neck and neck. I mean, they're right there. The 996 is certainly, this is where you start getting into styling. The E46 BMW M3, here I'm going to say it, is the better car. It's just, there it is. Wow. It's the better car. It is more useful. They're so easy to drive, and they're so easy to drive well. I mean, buttery smooth transmission, never any notchiness, light they're just so anyone could drive. It's like driving an S2000. I mean, they are just good cars. And when you start looking at track times between the two, between this and any what do you call it, a 996, they're basically identical. So it really comes down to driver and mods and stuff like that. And
sure.
But from a value point of view, these have definitely been a better deal for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see where this one goes.
I believe on all the M3s that the default is to have a sunroof, even with the competition package. But you could request, and if you were, in other words, if you were ordering the car out of Germany instead of buying off the showroom floor, you could order your car with the competition package, and you could ask them not to put a sunroof in, and then that's like the collector favorite because that's
slick
a great
tops for
take
sure.
A slick top all the way. That's a great take on this generation of the M3 being a match, if not having the upper hand as a better all-around car than 996. 996s were really sought after cars. They sold them like hotcakes. Even the purists cried that they were those water pumpers, but they were,
all
the M3 is a.
In the entire history of M3 versus M3 versus 911, it's always been the battle of those two cars. And, the E30 M3, is that better than the contemporary 911 at the time? I don't think so. You could make an argument that maybe it is, but let's face it, it's not. Whereas the 911, the first generation of the water pumper 911 struggled in a lot of ways. The dot 2 version of the 996 is a fantastic car, and that's what you'd be putting a 2005 M3 up against, although the 997 was also introduced at that time too. But this was the one time where the two kind of like came together, and then from there it started accordioning away again. Even though the E90 M3 beat the 997 when it came to all the numbers, from horsepower and all that kind of stuff, the E90 M3 had like 100 more horsepower than the 997 version, and those had identical track times. So you could say, well, why isn't that car better? Because I had 100 more horsepower and could still only get the same track time. How does that work?
Because they shoehorned a V8 in there, but the cars also got fat and piggy, and so the 911 won with finesse. And handling.
Exactly.
So
I think the E46 is the sweet spot in the M3 lineup, and is the value right now. E36s have already started to climb up. They are impossible to find clean ones. E36s, that's a generation before this, were all roached out because they were cheap for so long, and they all get turned into drift cars and got destroyed. So if you find a super clean one of those, the value is through the roof and probably worth more than an E46. Kind of like 964s surpassed 993s. It used to be the other way around. So the value you can find if you can find a nice E46 M3 that wasn't molested, that is a win. And especially if you find one with a hardtop, that's an even bigger deal.
Yeah. Competition manual are bringing regularly big bucks, but this car's 2 accidents are going to hold it way back. So instead of expecting to spend maybe in the low 40s for a miler and over 50 for a car with like less than 20,000 miles on it, I think this car's gonna get hurt, and I think the seller knows that too. So anyway, my bid, JP, on this car with the 2 accidents is going to be $25,000, and I think that's a tremendous buy, despite the accidents. So. What do you think?
That would be so much car for 25. I mean, what kind of 996 do you get for 25 or 997? You're going to get a super high mile car with an IMS threat. This thing is at 96,000 miles. This is just getting warmed up. The S54 motor is the best. I mean, you could drive this thing you got a couple little things, but nothing. It's the Vanos and some other issues with the E46s are fairly well known. You can look those up on the internet, but they're not Achilles heels. They don't don't destroy the car like an IMS bearing would. So yeah, I mean, boy, if this thing sells for 25, that would be a fantastic car to own and drive forever. But that's still quite a bit of money for someone to just kind of like plunk down for something that's just a driver and whatever. So, but how many bids do we have right now?
12.
12. Yeah, I'm going to go the over. I'm going to say this finds a late rally on a Monday somehow. I'm only going to go 1,000 more than you because I don't think it's going to find that much more. But I think your bid is probably spot on. I think that it's going to be 25, give or take 2. So I think you're right smack in the middle of it.
Yeah, and now what I remember too, JP, the Mercedes AMG cars, the C-Class cars, were also trying to keep up with BMW and find that niche market. And as I got kind of into track days with 911s, I remember guys showing up in their Mercedes and their BMWs, those later generation cars after this, and those cars would heat up and they'd go into like a limp mode, and these guys would be in the track and their car wouldn't turn over. It was like, well, temperature's too high in the gearbox, and they're like, what? So I think this generation of BMWs are kind of the last great analog BMWs that didn't have so many nannies that you couldn't go out and enjoy them and flog them to your delight. So that I agree. Good car, great car. Okay.
All right, let's move it along. We're a little long, so let's get to the last 2 cars here really quick.
This will be fun to run through this car because I must admit I did not do my homework. So we're looking at a 2016 Alfa Romeo 4. This car is offered to us out of Arlington, Virginia. It's got 16,000 miles on it, and it was sitting at, for a long time, $39,000 on like 19 bids. These cars are completely over-engineered for the drivetrain they host, which is really weird. The entire monocoque shell that these cars are made out of are basically grafted out of carbon fiber, and like each shell of these is cooked in an oven, JP. They literally have to make them one at a time. There's a fantastic how they were built, one of these like YouTube documentary things, and they do an hour-long silent video about watching one of these cars get made over the course of a week from start to finish, and it is fascinating. While you're watching the car during its inception, you would assume they're making a multi-million-dollar exotic supercar, and instead they're making an economical little sports car for Alfa Romeo. It is a shame that the only thing they put in there is this like 6 liter or 1.8 liter turbocharged 4 that makes barely 250 horsepower. And it's asinine that Alfa Romeo hasn't either advanced that thing with more boost to give it well over 300 horsepower or offered some really trick high revving little V6 a la Ferrari Dino-ish. So these cars have struggled to find an audience. Dealers have struggled to sell them. They don't even offer the coupes anymore, which this car is. They only make the Spiders. And this year is the last year for the Spider in the U.S. So get one while you can. Sure to be a collector item someday, but the values on these are terribly soft. I think they were like $85,000 brand new. And this car, it'll be interesting if it breaks 50. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think they are so much fun, and just what the heck happened? Why? I mean, that Noble that we looked at. If this car had Noble performance, it would be one of the greatest supercars of all time. I mean, it's like, what the hell were they thinking when they said, "All right, we're going to do this amazing looking little vehicle with no power"? I mean, I get that they were going after the Boxster, and that's kind of their main target. But when this car was introduced, the Boxster still had a 6-cylinder engine, and then the Boxster said, "Oh, well, I guess we can still charge $70,000-$80,000 with a 4-cylinder, so let's do that." And so they are.
This car almost has more in common with the Lotus Elise than it does with the Boxster.
It really does.
It splits the difference between the two. This particular car was $73,000, but like a fully dressed up Spider is over $85,000 today, which is so, that $70,000 to $85,000 range. It's not inexpensive. And yet the performance is modest. These cars are not quick. They have a great dual clutch transmission. They handle like they're on rails. They're supposed to be phenomenal and would make a great track car. But if you're spending that kind of money and you have something that's that exotic, it's got to sound good. It's got to stir your soul. And this little, multi-air 1.7 liter turbocharged 4, those cars all buzz. there's something about those 4-cylinder turbos from Mercedes and BMW and stuff, and they're not creamy, smooth. There's no melody to them. They have nothing that will make the hair stand up on the back of your neck, and that's a shame. Alfa comes back and makes this beautiful car, and then it's like, So,
is there any car in the world that looks better or sounds better than the Alfa 4C? The first time I ever saw one of the, or I'm sorry, 8C. Yeah, my bad. The first time I saw one of those was on South Beach in Florida, and it was at night during a weekday. So there wasn't a lot of people out there, but you could just hear something echoing through, the building canyons. And you're like, what is somebody running an F1 car? What is coming? And then that thing comes flying around the corner. There it goes. And you're like, oh, okay, that was as amazing as it looked in the pictures. This car kind of feels like a knockoff Rolex version of it. I mean, it's just like, the hand doesn't sweep, and it makes my arm green when I wear it. What the hell is this thing? It's just, it's just a shame. It's an absolute shame.
Listen, I don't know anything about automotive industry, and manufacturing costs and all that sort of thing. But this car seems like a failure to launch. If they're going to put all that money into the engineering of the monocoque of this, why not change the sheet metal and let Alfa have this, like a base version with the 250 horsepower, and then like a quattrofolio with like 350 and 400 horsepower. And then Ferrari should also be using this exact same chassis and throw a V6 in it and call it a Dino. And then you'd have a $200,000, $250,000 Ferrari instead of, your new F8 Tributo is $350,000. Nobody can afford that. It's insane.
The phone is ringing. I hear Fiat calling. They want to hire you. Yeah, all right. What's your bid on this thing? I mean, 39 is pretty good money already. That's what they go for. I mean, it's 40 grand is how much they are for a used one. This one's low miles, but geez.
Right. It's difficult for me to kind of garner that. I'm going to go $44,000 JP and think that this one should have an audience. Yeah. So
I mean, it does have some bids, and it is nice, and it is the right color. Where is this coming out of? Is this anywhere that doesn't
Virginia?
Suck?
No, Arlington, Virginia. That sucks.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. So it's going to be hard to get it here. You said what? 45?
Yeah, it'll be hard for the buyer to pick up this car without talking about politics. That's how terrible this is.
Yeah, and you gotta hire someone in a transporter, and those are really hard to find.
44,000 is my bid, JP.
Oh, 44. Then I'll go one over and go 45. I mean, that's
all right. There you go.
That's tough. That's tough. I think we're both, whoever wins this, we're both going to be within a grand. Wherever this lands. All right, let's move on to the last car of the day for a Monday. It's Monday. It's time for Monday to be over. What's the last car?
Okay, cool. So we've got a 1995, which I think is the last year for the W124 platform, Mercedes-Benz E320 Cabriolet. This is a no reserve auction, JP, which I think is really cool. You don't see them nearly as often on Bring a Trailer. This car is offered to us out of San Antonio, Texas, with just 47,000 miles on the odometer. Listen, again, these are not sports cars. They're not particularly quick. But this car at 100 miles an hour, you could drive with two fingers. They're incredibly stable, and they're actually fast. And they drive silky smooth, and I can't say enough nice things about the build quality. Often overlooked, but I think these are great cars. If you're a baller on a budget or you just want to have like a weekend car, you could do a lot worse than owning an E320 from this era. It's surprising to me that they don't bring more money. This particular one out of Texas, JP, is on just 14 bids and sitting at 13.5. I have to believe on a no reserve auction, this car is going to break 20 grand. I really do like them. They're not the prettiest car, but they're just really cool. There's an elegance and a little stature to them. Great car. If you're so inclined, trust me, you'll love it. If you buy one, it's just going to be an awesome car.
Yeah, this thing is classy. You can go to the country club. You can go to Radwood. You can go pretty much anywhere, and people are going to go, wow, that thing is dope. People that don't know anything about them are going to be like, that's something, what is that? Maybe they don't know. Younger people will be attracted to it. Older people will be nostalgia about it. And you're just going to have a great time driving it. I've owned an E320 sedan. I've never owned one of these convertible ones, and that sedan is one of my favorite driver cars I've ever owned. If I had to pick one car to just drive every day, that wasn't a sports car, I mean, that and like an air-cooled 911 would be like the perfect kind of no-frills combination. And this being a convertible, not if you're not a cabriophobe and you like I mean, in here in Vegas to be able to cruise up the strip in this, I mean, I do wish it were a black on black one. This is the white on gray definitely makes it kind of the wife's car, but it's still just gorgeous.
That's the only thing I don't like about it is the white on gray color palette. I would want mine in like black with tan, and the black dashboard would be really cool. The two tones in these are really great. Fantastic car, JP. I think this car, the no reserve Texas, 47,000 miles, clean Carfax, I think $22,000.
$22,000 is a pretty good bid. I mean, we haven't seen these. They didn't make very many of them, and these have never ever been cheap. I mean, the convertible versions have I mean, almost never been under $10,000, which is cheap by like exotic car standards and stuff like that. But this isn't a car that a 16-year-old could just really go out and get forever. Sedans and coupes you can get under 10, even for a decent car. But you're right, with Mercedes-Benz, man, the convertibles always take a big premium. So I think this car's got some legs, especially being a no reserve. What do you think? Yeah. What'd you say, 22?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I mean, breaking 20 would be something, because even though they've never really been super cheap, they've also never really commanded big money. I think that's a ways to go. I don't know if it's going to break 20. I sure hope it does, but I'm going to say 19.5. I'm going to give myself $500.
Oh, good. Yeah, there you go. That's a strong bid. All right, JP, we did it.
We did it. We made it through a Monday. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on our little nerd out on the most interesting cars and bids and Bring a Trailer. We do this every Monday through Friday during the 9 o'clock-ish hour on the Pacific time. So make this your stop before you cruise Cars and Bids and Bring a Trailer and find out what a couple of idiots, nerds, or idiots, I don't know, those are interchangeable, right? What they think about the most interesting cars. Tell us what you think. Let us know what cars you want us to review, and make sure you subscribe and like and hit the notification button. And we are a brand new channel, so please help spread the word. We love you guys. Thanks for watching. Michael Deeb, thank you for coming out here and helping me from San Francisco. This has been John Polnik from Las Vegas. Bid